How's it going, everyone? It's Johnny Beard here with the season finale of Season 7 of Streamer Stories Podcast. Lots of S's in there. I've got one more to add to it because the season finale guest is Josh Strife Hayes. Here he is, the legend himself. How are you?
Good evening, Johnny. How are you doing today? Thank you very much for having me on. I'm looking forward to chatting to you about anything and everything to do with gaming and streaming.
Hell yeah, I cannot wait, my friend. I cannot wait. Again, in terms of your content, just one of the best to do it at the moment, that's for sure, on YouTube and again on Twitch as well. Really appreciate your time. Incredible content creator, man.
Thank you very much. I've been able to copy other people much better than me, so well that no one's realized I'm copying them yet. As soon as people realize exactly, I mean, I've even messaged the people that I'm inspired by in the videos that, I watched and looked up to as a kid, and I've messaged them being like, hey, thanks for all of the inspiration. And I've been able to take a lot of the stuff that I loved from content creators I grew up with and smash them together into a strange amalgamation of something people seem to like.
There we go. And like you said, it's inspiration, isn't it? So and you can be. It's great that you're thankful for that because again, we're all just winging it, aren't we? Let's be honest. So.
Oh, absolutely. The old saying is that good artists borrow, but great artists steal. And I was able to work out why I was watching other content creators and then emulate bits of their style and kind of make it my own over time. But learning from other people is one of the fastest ways to become good at something, standing on the shoulders of giants, as they say.
100%. Brilliant. Well, Josh, thank you again for your time. So, again, I know a lot of people do. If you don't know who this guy is, I mean, Jesus, seriously. But for those who don't know, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us what type of content you make.
Sure. So, my name is Josh Strife Hayes. I review MMORPG games, mostly on YouTube, and I play a random selection eclectic on Twitch. So, my main channel, Josh Strife Hayes, is MMORPGs, World of Warcraft, Runescape, Guild Wars 2, Elder Scrolls Online, Final Fantasy XIV, those kind of expansive, extravagant online adventure worlds that take hundreds of hours to get into. I do put the hundreds of hours into the games to try and see if they get good, as everyone keeps telling me they do. MMORPGs are a rather dense genre to attack, and I've been able to do it for a couple of years. Then I started a second channel called Josh Strife Plays, because I enjoyed the rhyme, where I review old RPG games like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, or Neverwinter Nights, or even the online Adventure Quest Flash game that I'm lucky enough to have a poster of me behind. On Twitch, I've finished playthroughs of Elden Ring, Skyrim, and the Colonel Sanders dating sim. I've also pushed into playing those choose-your-own-adventure books, the old fighting fantasy, where you turn to this page to go left and this page to go right, allowing Twitch chat to vote on which way they want to go, which always results in a fun 6 hours of running in circles around a dungeon, but we have a good time.
Amazing. Oh, that's incredible. Incredible stuff. That's now, isn't it? So that's where we are currently in if we're pausing time, but we're going to go back in time. We're going to go back X amount of years. So dare not dox you and your age. So, but yeah, let's go back to yesteryear then and talk about childhood then. So what were your first visuals of seeing a game? Never mind playing it. What was that?
Oh, like? Okay. So video games have been a big thing for me for a long time, and I remember going to a friend's house back when I was in primary school, and they had much more money than I did growing up as a kid, and they had a PlayStation 1, which to me was phenomenal, and they had Tekken on the PlayStation 1, and I just sat there absolutely enthralled watching these kind of poly characters attack each other. It was brilliant. And then I went home and I was like, Mom, we need to buy a PlayStation. And she went, no, we don't have the money. I went, oh, okay, that's understandable, that's fine. And a couple of years later, she was like, but we can get you a Sega Master System. So we got the original Sega Master System with Sonic built into it, cartridges you have to clip in, and I've still got the original box of that Sega Master System 2. It's the one with the little green label up there and Sonic on it. That I've had since childhood. It's very important to me that I keep that. It reminds me that's where my love for video games started. In fact, everything in the room has some kind of cultural significance to me. And then my granddad also got into it. My granddad bought a PC that was capable of playing video games at the time with things like Roller Coaster Tycoon or Myth, The Fallen Lords, or kind of really old Sierra puzzle games where if you made a mistake 5 minutes into your playthrough, you would die 2 hours later. You just wouldn't know that you were going to die. You just had to make the mistake early. So for me, it was PlayStation 1, Amstrad, Amiga, the Sega Master System, and then the original handheld Game Boy with Tetris.
Amazing. Wow, that's eclectic in itself, just as a beginning point, let's be honest. And again, it makes sense in terms of, again, where the PC roots come from as well, in terms of, again, where where your love for MMOs and role playing games in general comes from. Wow, that's amazing. But yeah, oh, wow, I love that story. Like again, you took your PlayStation 1 and you went back to the Master System. My story is kind of similar. I had a PS1 and I went back to the Mega Drive. So you went one step backwards from me. It's so incredible.
So the idea of MMORPGs, that came from school. Actually, I think it was high school. We were lucky enough to have a computer room in our high school, and it was like 7 or 8 PCs all set up. And at lunchtime, as long as you were well behaved, which I always was, you could use the computers to play video games for about half an hour. But you couldn't download anything to them because they were school computers. You weren't allowed to install exe files. I didn't even know what an exe file was at the time. I just knew no downloads. So I discovered a couple of games that didn't need downloads, games that were hosted online, like Newgrounds or Flash games. And then I went to Miniclip and I saw an advert for a game called Runescape. And Runescape at the time was an entirely browser-based MMORPG. Now, it was a couple of years until we'd get World of Warcraft. There was still the battle between Ultima Online and EverQuest, and you had Asheron's Call in the background as well. But Runescape was this almost childlike, if you will, point-and-click medieval kind of game simulator, and you didn't need to download it, so it ran perfectly on the school computers. So every school day would be a run to the computer room at 1 o'clock for lunch and play half an hour of RuneScape. And we bonded, me and my friends, over that. We met people online, we formed a little clan, a little guild, and that really kind of started my love of MMORPGs.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, and the teachers didn't mind at all? Did they not know?
I don't think they understood.
No.
That was very much at a time when there was IT technology classes or, computer classes where you had to be specifically taught how to use a mouse, how to save as instead of just save, how to open a browser window. I was very much, I'm older than the internet. That's what I often tell people. I'm sure that a lot of viewers, a lot of listeners probably understand that there was a time period before the internet was a thing.
What?
And then there was a time period now when the internet's very much a thing. And there exists a demographic of people whose lifespan spans that. And we actually get to see the internet being birthed. We get to see it become this cultural phenomenon. So the teachers just didn't understand what it was. You couldn't really explain it to someone who wasn't involved in that subculture because you had no frame of reference. Now, if someone says to me, what's an MMORPG? I'll say, it's like World of Warcraft. And they can all just say, yes, I understand, I get it. World of Warcraft is a phenomenon. It's infiltrated the cultural zeitgeist. But if someone were to say to me, what's World of Warcraft back in 2004? I'd have to say, it's like EverQuest, which then just dominoes into what's EverQuest?
Yes.
It's like Ultima. What's Ultima?
Yeah.
It's like, and then it just goes back until the first video game.
Yeah, definitely. What a fantastic way of saying that as well. Definitely. I again like I remember this. I've seen this graph almost, like a great example as well. To continue your point is like Doom. Again, people talk about Doom clones, and the term Doom clones was used so much in the 90s, and now everyone uses FPS and first-person shooters. But there was this period of time when it was that's like Doom. So it's a very similar conversation, isn't it? For sure.
People need to recontextualize what they know. It's like, I was on a train recently, actually. I was traveling back from Cardiff. I was at a Magic the Gathering event, and I was carrying a big bag of Warhammer that I bought, because I love my plastic crack. I was carrying a bag of Warhammer, and some drunk guy on the train was trying to make conversation with me. Nothing malicious. They were just trying to talk, and they were like, are you doing your Christmas shopping? I'm like, nope, this is just for me. I'm just a nerd. And he went, what's that? I explained, it's little plastic men. And he went, like Sabutio. And I could have said, no, not at all like Sabutio. But I understand that what he was trying to do is he was trying to recontextualize what I was doing with something he understood and something he knew. He was saying okay, small plastic men, how do I know that? I know it from Sabutio. And people do that all the time. So the reason they say Doom clones is because people knew Doom. They didn't necessarily know the camera angle of first-person shooter would become the genre unto itself. And that's carried on. People say Souls-like now. And what they mean is, normally, a third-person hack-and-slash adventure game that involves frame-perfect dodging and animation matching to the actual moves to match Dark Souls 2, Elden Ring, all that. We've even got roguelikes. Yeah. People forget that when they say roguelike, they're actually referencing a video game called Rogue, originally, that was about dying and respawning and doing it all again. So when people say, Doom likes, Souls likes, rogue likes, they're trying to recontextualize it with something they know. But eventually it becomes so popular that the video game genre itself just becomes known.
Definitely. Wow. Yeah. Incredible. So let's talk about some of your favourite hits then from back in those days then. So again, let's talk about your PS1, your Master System. You already mentioned some brilliant games like EverQuest. Yes. What were some of the other games you played in your youth then?
So to reference a video that I saw on Twitter, actually, I'm not calling it X, I'll call it Twitter, about an hour ago, they have announced a remaster of the Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. And I absolutely adored the Legacy of Kain. I think Soul Reaver, I've reviewed Soul Reaver on my Josh Strife Plays channel, and Soul Reaver was written mostly by a lady called Amy Henning. And Amy Henning went on to write the Uncharted series, Uncharted 1, 2, 3, and she had a strong hand in Uncharted 4. And again, some of my absolute favorite games. Soul Reaver, Legacy of Kain, was the first time that I realized a video game could be almost cinematic in its approach to storytelling. Final Fantasy VII, of course, was a big moment for me. That's where the Strife in my online name comes from, the Cloud Strife and the connection to it. I had Jade Cocoon as a kid, which was almost like Pokemon before Pokemon was a thing. Medieval. But for me, strangely, I never actually got a chance to play all the way through a lot of complete video games. Instead, because of my family not having a lot of expendable cash, we bought the demo discs, which used to come with big physical magazines, and you would get a little demo disc, and the magazine was like £4 or £5, and you got between 5 and 10 games on a disc that you could play through. So I have approximate knowledge of many things. Someone will say to me, oh, do you like the game Akuji the Heartless, which is a game almost nobody's ever played? And I'm like, I love Akuji the Heartless because I played one level for like 5 weeks because it was on the demo disc and I just played it. Cool Borders. I had one level of Metal Gear Solid. I had the SSX Tricky game that I bought because I couldn't afford Cool Borders 2 when I was a kid. So for me, I have so many memories of so many video games, but they're mostly from demo discs, and only very rarely did I actually end up with a full PlayStation 1 game. Then the PlayStation 2 released. My mum and dad had managed to advance in their careers. We had a PlayStation 2, and that's when I got games like Eternal Ring, which was one of the first From Software games, a launch title for the PS2, games like Armored Core 2. And then ultimately it went into more of the Final Fantasies, Final Fantasy X. Not played Final Fantasy X Part 2 yet, but then I discovered PC gaming, and most of my time was taken up by Roller Coaster Tycoon, Theme Hospital, and then I discovered Baldur's Gate, which is where my love for Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing and general creation and narrative-driven games came from.
Wow. Just eclectic is the word I'm using here for sure. Like again, when it comes to like demo discs, it's so true. Again, I remember I always love having conversations with people about Tombi or Tomba, and like I think I swear about 80% of people go, "Oh yeah, I played the demo of that." They don't go, "Oh yeah, I played the full game."
So one of my friends, a guy who got a YouTube channel called Kadikarus, I don't know if you've seen the Kadikarus stuff before. He is a big Tomba fan, and they just sent him a load of kind of merchandise that he opened up and has shared it on Twitter. So it's these classic things as well that everyone gets to share together when everyone says, oh, do you remember that? Like I've got an old PlayStation 1 game called Pandemonium, which was a kind of 2.5D side-scrolling jumper, Croc, which they are remastering finally and bringing it back out. All of these old games that people go, oh yeah, I remember that. That is a lovely nostalgic moment, and that's kind of what I want to kind of experience with my second channel. One of the reasons I started the second channel, Josh Strife Plays, purely from a selfish point of view, was I wanted to find a way to justify to myself playing all these old games as a business idea. And so instead of just sat there thinking, I'm wasting my time, I'm sat there going, I'm working. And then I could see if the games were good.
I'll level with you, Josh. That's how I discovered you. Like I shouted to my bro. He got me into your stuff because, again, you mentioned it already, Jade Cocoon. I watched your Jade Cocoon video and I was like, oh, wow, there's not much of those around. And I love Jade Cocoon 1 and 2. In fact, brilliant games.
2 is so rare.
It's so
One of my favorite things to do is go into secondhand shops. In the UK, we have a shop called CEX, which is pronounced sex. And every single time I go past one of those shops, I go in and I try and find Jade Cocoon 2, Legend of the Tamamayu. And I've never found... I had it as a kid. I remember my grandparents taking me shopping into Booker Cash and Carry, like a big wholesale cash and carry store, and there were PlayStation games for some reason at the end of the store, and we've got Age of Empires 2 on PlayStation 2 for some reason, and the Jade Cocoon 2, and I picked those up and I went home and I played them and they were amazing, and I have never been able to find the game since. It's one of those kind of rare lost media things.
I think I didn't say it got me worried now. I swear I've got a copy of it.
If you've got a copy of Jade Cocoon 2, hold on to it, man, because it is rare and nostalgic. I love it.
I don't own Jade. I never did own Jade Cocoon 1. Again, we talk about demo discs. That's how I played it. And then I think years and years later, I emulated it because, again, that was hard to find.
Yeah.
But I love Jade Cocoon 1 and 2. Wish they made a third, but obviously Studio Genki, they don't exist, do they? So, but yeah, that's how I found you. Again, I thought that. So again, it's quite funny you mentioned that the second channel because I love what you're doing on that. It's incredible. So, hell yeah.
So one of the reasons that I wanted to start that second channel was MMORPGs are excellent. I love the genre. I will always love the genre, but it is, if we are honest with ourselves, aging out. It doesn't necessarily appeal to a younger demographic of gamers. If you were to say to someone, hey, do you want to play a game for 100 hours and in that 100 hours it might get good? They're going to say, no, I want to play a game that gets good immediately. And there is absolutely a design point to be made by their wants and their demands and their ideas. The MMO does not necessarily appeal to as many people as it used to appeal to, because the main strength of an MMORPG is it's an online game. It's a very pretty chat room. It is a multiplayer experience. But that's not novel anymore. That's not unique. That's not a selling point of your game. Anything can do that now. You can message anyone on anything. So I decided to expand my kind of YouTube horizons and move away from just the MMO genre and go into retro gaming, which has a huge nostalgic pull, and I wanted to experience the games myself. And it's obviously worked because you and I have connected over Jade Cocoon, a random nostalgic game that no one remembers that we played together, and now we're talking about it. Games like Medieval, games like Metal Gear Solid, games that almost everyone says are good, but I haven't actually played. So I get to sit and play them for the first time with fresh eyes, with no nostalgia, and see if they are any good. I had a demo of Armored Core 1 on the PlayStation 1. I didn't even know that Armored Core was a From Software title, the same people that made Dark Souls and Elden Ring. So when I played Armored Core 1, and I thought, oh my god, I can see the design that would go on to become Demon Souls, Dark Souls, that kind of stuff. That's what I want to do. I want the second channel, which one day will probably become the primary channel, to be about discovering what made old video games good and if it still stands up today.
Brilliant. Excellent stuff. So let's talk about PC gaming then. So again, we talk about EverQuest and we talk about all those grounding titles. So did you experiment much with mods? Did you play much online with friends? Where's your relationship been with PC gaming at that point, and then how has it evolved?
I started PC gaming with my grandfather's, I want to say, either Commodore or Amiga or Amstrad, with floppy disks, installing Golden Axe, installing Chips Challenge, I remember there was one point-and-click search game called Grandpa's Quest for the Holy Vest. Almost nobody has played this game.
What? No.
It's very similar to Broken Sword, but nowhere near as popular. The idea that it's a narrative adventure where you have to click around the screen, find items, combine them in a certain way, and then escape from something. And that was how I started playing. Now, I was not very computer savvy. Even when I finally got my family got a PC, and we had the computer room, which was a thing that old people used to have, where we put the computer in one room of the house, and we specifically had that as the computer room.
Yes.
When I would go in and I would play Theme Park or Theme Hospital, or I would purchase games, PC games from Game or Game Station, which is a shop that's shut down now, or Argos. I'd read the Argos catalog at Christmas, and I'd come back and I'd install them. But I didn't understand how PC specs worked. So I actually didn't know if a game was going to run on my PC. So if I bought a really powerful game, like I had a laptop, it wasn't a very good laptop at all, but it was a laptop, and I bought the original Halo, and I tried to install it, and it ran like absolute, terrible. Yeah. And I just thought, wow, Halo's awful.
Yeah.
Without realizing that my laptop was nowhere near powerful enough to actually play Halo. And then I started looking to specs, and I remembered one day when I came home and I thought, right, I have read the back of this case. I have cross-referenced it with the specs of my laptop. I've got exactly the minimum that it says. I'm sure this will be fine. And that was a game called Morrorwind. And I'd never played it before. I'd never played the Elder Scrolls, never played any of the RPGs. I installed Morrowind. I lost 2 years of my life. It was fantastic. It was absolutely brilliant. But that's when I realized that PC gaming was nowhere near as easy as console gaming. You couldn't just buy something and have it work. But then I realized, hang on, I can now make Morrowind work the way I want it to. I can go into the ini files and change some of the values. I can customize this game. And I understood how mods started to work. But honestly, I never really enjoyed modding as much as I enjoyed trying to complete the games on hard. Because in my mind, that was the developer challenging me. They were saying, hey, made this game, but this is tough. You complete this by mastering the game. And I thought, I like that. I agree with that. I understand what you want from me here. I learn the language of your game. I beat it, move on to the next game. And that's when I realized that as soon as microtransactions started happening in games, I hated it because that completely changed that kind of dichotomy of be good at the game to beat it. But no, so PC gaming for me was very much Roller Coaster Tycoon and Morrowind for about 5 years.
Yes. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Again, we're looking at your channel and your love for the Elder Scrolls series, and hell yeah.
Oh, without a doubt, yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I've still not played Daggerfall. That is on the list to live stream on Twitch at some point, but I know how big Daggerfall is, so I'm very intimidated about starting it. There's been a Unity remake of that recently, and I'm excited about playing that because it adds mouse look to it. Because I downloaded the original on Good Old Games, and oh man, the original is rough. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying that it's not well optimized for modern gameplay styles. But the remake and the remaster brings a lot of the control systems and the UI up to modern specs. Doesn't change the game mechanics, just allows you to interact with them in a better way.
Goodness me, yeah, that is a mammoth. That is I could be a game as big as mammoth in that respect. Let's be honest, Daggerfall. So yeah, wow. Okay, and then you just talk about like the microtransactions. And let me guess, you were not a big fan of the horse skin of Oblivion. Then.
No, goodness me, that was. I've made an entire video on my main channel about how horse armor in Oblivion was close to ground zero as far as companies realizing that they could make more money by doing less work. Mm-hmm. And I think there was, it may have been Thor that talked about the fact that there was a skin in one of the games, whether it was Diablo or Warcraft, that made more profit than all of StarCraft 2. I'm not saying it made more money, I'm saying it made more profit when you look at the actual kind of effort put into creating it and money generated by it. StarCraft 2 obviously sold a load of copies, made a load of money, but it cost a lot to make. And when you take away the actual cost and the investment and you look at the return on the investment, it was better for Blizzard to just make a load of skins for other games than it was to make entire games. This is an entire super deep discussion. I mean, one of the first MMORPGs to include the loot box mechanic was MapleStory. And I was researching about it, about how you make so much more money by gamifying a casino than you do by kind of making a good game. If you make a good game and sell it, you get Elden Ring, you get incredible awards, you get Game of the Year, you get prestige, you get displays made about you, you get loved and adored by gamers, and you don't make anywhere near as much money as FIFA Ultimate Team does in 1 year. Mm-hmm. You don't make anywhere near as much money as Roblox does with some of its kind of paid for games, anywhere near as much as Genshin Impact makes in a month. And that was, again, a phenomenon that we've lived through. We lived through the birth of the internet, and we've actually lived through that shift of games changing from an experience made to be the best it can possibly be to an experience made to be as profitable as it can possibly be. And you can feel it. You can feel it when you play games. Now, games have always been designed to take money off you. You go to an arcade, you play Time Crisis, it wants another coin, it wants another quarter, it wants another pound, it wants another whatever to give you another life to play. Games are made to take money off you slowly, but they were also designed to be as fun as possible to keep getting that money from you. There were even games that were referred to as kind of blockbuster rental titles. A good example is The Lion King on, I want to say, the Mega Drive. The Lion King is incredibly tough to beat. Aladdin as well. These really difficult Disney games. They were designed that you would rent them for a weekend, get 4 or 5 levels in so you understood the game, and then fail again and again and again. And there were no save states. There were a limited number of lives. You had to rent it again, rent it again, rent it again. Rental places loved games that were difficult to finish, but only in the last couple of levels. So even then, we saw an idea of a video game being designed to make profit over just being the best game it could be. E.T. was designed in 3 weeks by one guy because they wanted to cash in on the hype of the E.T. film. That almost kind of crashed the video game industry, the landfill site. I've played the original E.T. It's incredible from a programming point of view and terrible as a game. So when we start to look at the commodification of video games and the monetization within them, it's always been there to a degree. It's just now much more egregious than it ever was.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, yeah, like I said, that's a huge deep dive. We continue to go down that road, but I kind of almost want to. But one thing I do want to say, if you don't mind, is again when that we've also, like I said, we've gone through that period where we were that internet generation that birthed the internet and all that stuff. Again, another thing that we've gone through, I think, as well, is again that medium when it comes to video gaming versus like the movies and the TV industry as well. Like I remember Grand Theft Auto San Andreas being this monumental title where it sold better than movies of its time. Like we've gone through that as well. It's fascinating.
That was a really interesting. The fact you've used Grand Theft Auto is fantastic because the PlayStation 3 had 3 Grand Theft Autos,
yes,
while Grand Theft Auto 5 has had 3 PlayStations, 3 kind of console generations. So video games used to be quite niche. They used to be kind of relegated to the back of the shop, and they were still a bit weird. When you get video game references in films, it always makes me laugh whenever you see a video game in a film and you see the actor kind of moving with the controller like this and going all around. And I'm thinking, no one plays like that. No one actually plays video games like that. And then you get video games made for films that just look terrible. And someone will say, oh, do you have the high score? And that's not how that works. But then video games actually eclipsed movies and books and TV shows. And now video games are the most profitable, the largest entertainment industry in the world. Video games are bigger than film and TV, which is why we're getting the Minecraft movie, the Sonic movie. It's why we've already had the movie Pixels. It's why we've had the movie about Assassin's Creed. We've had the World of Warcraft movie. Suddenly, this niche, strange, odd hobby of people just sitting in the corners of their room on a PC screen, pretending to be an elf with a character sheet in front of them, suddenly, that's a Dungeons and Dragons film, and it's fantastic and it's amazing. Video games have gone from being a niche, nerdy thing to the most popular form of entertainment globally. And that might be because, and we have to admit this, the mobile phone is now the most popular video game console of all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly is. Absolutely. And again, it reminds me as well, like another similar conversation, a similar thread as well, I suppose, is like comic books as well, because again, comic books were a niche thing back in the 50s and 60s, and now it's becoming the biggest biggest movie franchise ever made. So this made me think, like, what's going to happen next in that respect? Like, what's happening now that's kind of underground, niche, indie, and then what will be something massively mainstream in 2050? Who knows? It's kind of...
So, yeah, that's a fascinating point to look at it. And now the comic book industry is a brilliant example. It's like the books, comic books, the ideas, stories, myths, legends, all this artistic stuff that was created many, many years ago. What happens is Hollywood tends to go through a cycle, as in you will have someone or some culture somewhere or some collective who creates stories because they genuinely care about the stories. You will have the legends of the Wild West. You will have the legends of Egypt. You'll have the legend of Africa. You'll have the legend of Australia. All of these kind of myths and stories passed down through generations. Hollywood will then find them and realize, hang on, this is great. We don't need to write anything because it's all already written. Mm-hmm. And then you have the pirate stories. So Hollywood went through this idea of converting famous books into stories. And then it was the idea of, let's convert all the tales of the Wild West. Suddenly martial arts stories were a big thing, and that came through. And then in the 2000s, we had the kind of Matrix, the idea of sci-fi stories, dystopian stories. But Hollywood is mostly about finding stuff that has already proven that it's popular, and then just commodifying on that, just kind of jumping on top of that. I'm not saying original movies don't get written anymore. They absolutely do. One of the best films ever released was Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is just a beautiful cinematic experience. But Hollywood has finally latched onto, probably started about 15 years ago, comic books are great. They've got fantastic stories in them. They've got really interesting stories in them. They've got fleshed out characters. They've got fleshed out worlds. You're basically giving a filmmaker all of the prep work already done for them and said, hey, make this. The problem is that then you run into audience fatigue. You run into superhero fatigue. We don't care anymore. All stories naturally build to a conclusion, and then we want a new story. If you keep trying to add conclusions, you end up with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's like, but it gets worse, but it gets worse. It's power creep within a narrative setting. It's story creep. And Hollywood is starting to burn out. People don't care as much about superhero films. People are starting to recognize the formula. So you are absolutely spot on when you say what will be next. And I think whatever it will be it will be stories that were written 10, 15 years ago, cultural events that happen, things that people have started to love that then get made into films. And that was video games. That's why we're getting the Minecraft movie. That's why we got the Sonic movie. That's why we got the attempts at that with the Assassin's Creed movie. We're now going to start seeing movie versions of video games. We've already seen it with TV shows. We've seen it with Castlevania TV show. We just had the trailer for the Devil May Cry TV show. We've had more. The Witcher has got another kind of TV show, Season of the Wolf, going on with that. So I think the next thing is going to be good video game films. The difficulty Hollywood is going to run into is making it good.
Yes, definitely. And something that they've been struggling for the last 20, 30 years now as well. But yeah, I think we are finally at a certain point where we have finally started to get to a certain level, at least now. That's for sure. Yeah. Wow. Okay, if you indulge me, let's talk about Elder Scrolls then, because I do love.
Go for it.
I love Oblivion. I love Skyrim. So your journey started with Morrowind. Tell us about your love for the Elder Scrolls series then. Some of your favourite levels.
So I moved on. So I never actually played Oblivion when it released because I thought it was a DLC.
Oh, really? Okay.
I wasn't as clued up on video games as I was now, so I was playing Morrowind on my laptop, and then the Blood Moon expansion released, which I bought and was fantastic, and I played it, and in Blood Moon you go to the kind of snow isles, and it lagged my laptop something terrible because the snow effects were on, and I was playing like a PowerPoint presentation of 1 or 2 frames a second, and then they had the Tribunal expansion, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. Didn't understand it at the time when I played it, but I go back and I played it recently on stream, and I'm like, wow, this actually is a really good story. The Tribunal, the gods, the ideas, the stolen power, the Nerevar, all of the legends. Loved it. Oblivion released, and I thought, I don't really like the look of the graphics on that. It's a bit generic fantasy for me. I'll avoid it. And then, of course, Skyrim released. Now, I very much remember Skyrim releasing because I was working in a warehouse at the time. I was a warehouse manual laborer. I'd moved boxes from A to B. I've done a lot of jobs in my life, and it was the midnight release, and I remember it was the 11th of the 11th of the 11th, 2011, and me and my friend Simon, as soon as our shift finished, because we worked night shift, as soon as our shift finished, we went straight into town, both bought Skyrim, went home, installed it on our PCs, played it all day. I forgot to sleep and had work the next night. So I'd worked 12 hours. Wow. I'd played Skyrim for 12 hours, and then I'd gone back into work. So I was awake for 24 hours at this point. And I vividly remember this because I walked in, I was just moving boxes around, and my job was to peel stickers off this sticker sheet, stick them onto a box and move the box on. And my manager looked at me and went, Josh, you look a bit tired. And I peeled the sticker, held it in my hand, slapped it onto a metal table instead of the box, stuck it down and went, I'm really sorry, Tim, I've got to retreat to Riften. And then I fell asleep, stood up. I just closed my eyes and straight away, because my mind was still in Skyrim mode. I'm like, you've got to fast travel. You need sleep. Riften is the city you were previously in. So that was when I realized that Skyrim was a problem for me. And I played that a lot. And after finishing Skyrim, I thought, I miss the RPG elements. There was a very definite moment when I equipped boots in Skyrim. And I thought, it's really odd that I can't equip a left boot and a right boot. Mm-hmm. I can just equip boots. I feel that we've lost something there. And then I equipped a body armor, and I thought, hang on, no, I played Morrowind. What about my shin? What about my thigh? What about the belt? What about the left glove and the right glove being different? We've lost something RPG here. Hang on, when did this happen? So I thought, right, when did this happen? I've got to find out. I went back and played Oblivion. Gotcha. Played Oblivion all the way through. I'm like, okay, I see what's happening here. Morrowind is an absolutely excellent RPG with terrible combat. Like, I like
Yeah.
the system, don't get me wrong. I think that Morrowind's combat system, the mechanics behind it, when you understand it, are great, but it's very much a numbers-based system. Then you go to Skyrim, which is an excellent action combat game with terrible RPG mechanics added into it. And Oblivion is kind of okay at both of them.
Yeah.
Like, it's got enough RPGs to kind of sate but not be world class, and it's got decent enough combat that I can accept it and get on with it, but it's not amazing. Oblivion is really good at everything, but great at neither of the two things it's trying to be. It's just very solid, well-made game. So Morrowind was the RPG, and Skyrim was the action-adventure game. Mm-hmm. And Oblivion was the moment that they started kind of melding together and changing. Morrowind was excellent. I really enjoyed it as an RPG. And going back now, knowing how I can dominate the systems and almost bend the game to my will like some kind of malevolent god. I'm sat there playing Morrowind like I'm going to make a jump potion. I'm going to jump all the way across the map because I can do that. The game lets me do that. I love that. You can buy the bound dagger in the first town you get to, Balmorra. It's got one of the best spells in the game. You're going to use it the rest of the game. I love that. Oblivion was the moment where it went, okay, we need to appeal to a mass audience who aren't going to try and break the game.
Yeah.
We need to appeal to an audience who actually want a more balanced game. And in making a more balanced game, yes, you do increase your general appeal, but you lose that very niche, hardcore subset of players who loved the freedom within the first game. I feel that Oblivion was the moment that freedom was taken away from the player, and instead it was replaced with stability. And then Skyrim, even more freedom was taken away from the player, but even more stability, not kind of software stability, that was terrible, it was crashing all the time, but actual game design stability was added back. You can play Skyrim and feel solid, capable. You can exist within kind of defined parameters that you'll never truly die within if you play properly, but you can also never break out from. Morrowind will absolutely kill you in an unfair way, but you can be unfair back. The parameters much broader. You can take it to a stupid thing. The enemy can take it to a stupid thing. It's almost like a kind of role-playing game where you have extreme versus extreme. Skyrim, smaller scale, focused. You couldn't break the game. The game couldn't break you, but you couldn't break it.
Yes.
And I feel that it felt sanitized. It almost felt like it was made of a level of anesthetic instead of the freedom of an RPG.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, definitely. Do you feel like that's kind of happened as well when, again, we mentioned the Soulsborne type of games as well? Do you feel like there's a certain parallel in terms of, like, we talk about like Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1 and stuff like that compared to like Elden Ring now? Do you feel like there's a similar journey?
So I went back and I've actually been replaying the very first From Software games on the second channel, Kingsfield. I've played Kingsfield 1, Kingsfield 2. I'll be playing Kingsfield 3. I've already played Eternal Ring. And I feel that what they've done is they've actually been very, very careful to remain within the parameters that they've set. Kingsfield 1, you can become overpowered at quite quickly. Dark Souls 1, you can become overpowered at quite quickly. Elden Ring, you can become overpowered at very quickly. Elden Ring, I actually think, is an example of giving the player so much freedom that within the first half an hour of playing the game, if you know what you're doing, you can have a weapon that will last you the entire game, a build that will become very powerful. You know where the items are. It's more like learning the root of it specifically. From Software is a great example of them understanding that freedom within the game does not necessarily need to be at the expense of stability. Dark Souls 1 was one of my favorite games of all time. And if you start with the master key in Dark Souls 1, you can very quickly find your way to the Blight Town. You can find your way through. You can kill Quelaag. You can go and grab the Zweihander. You can go and get the lightning upgrade. You can go and get all of the Tearstone rings. You can become powerful quickly. Dark Souls 2, a similar thing. Dark Souls 3, you can kill the Dancer of the Boreal Valley early and then go and get the Cathedral Knight armor. I've been playing these games recently, which is why I know all this stuff. I wouldn't be able to remember all this. Elden Ring, you can go and kill the zombies to get the Gravescythe, the best weapon in the game. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. It's just a brilliant weapon. You should definitely use it. So I feel that From Software are one of the few developers who have actually been able to keep a decent balance within their game of freedom for the player within a decent amount of constraint.
Fascinating. Amazing. Again, you just explained that to me, because again, I'm not like a Souls guy. You know what, in a weird way, you know what all that reminded me of? We were talking about going back to go back to the game number 1 and stuff like that. Yeah. This reminds me of the base for Mega Man, almost.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. So Mega Man, and you had games like Castlevania.
Yes.
And you had games like, what's the game with Samus?
Oh, Metroid, yeah.
Metroid, which is why these games became known as Metroidvanias.
Yes.
And in fact, Dark Souls, a Souls-like, has almost taken over from the Metroidvania description. The idea that when you start playing Castlevania, when you start playing Metroid, when you start playing the old games, you do have a huge amount of freedom for where to go, but there is a kind of suggested route. Go and collect this item, which unlocks this. Go and collect this item, which unlocks this. First time I played Castlevania Symphony of the Night, one of the best games ever made, I didn't realize there was an inverted castle at all. I just got the bat, flew up, killed Dracula, and was like, oh, that was quick.
Yeah.
I thought there was more game. And then I played again. I'm like, hang on, what if I go down here? Oh, there's so much more. This is brilliant. It rewarded my exploration.
Yes.
And I think that's a really important part of game design. Rewarding the curiosity of the player, rewarding the understanding of the player. Yeah. To tie this together to a strange game that you mentioned earlier, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. If you use the jetpack to fly all the way to the top of the bridge on San Andreas, like the Golden Gate Bridge, you can stand on the very, very tip top, and there's a little signpost on the very top of the bridge that says, there's nothing up here, go away. And that was a moment the developers knew, players going to do this, so let's reward them for it.
Yeah.
And that starts this lovely kind of dance between the player and the developer, where you as a player understand that the developers, they got in your head. They knew what you were going to do, and they wanted to kind of bond with you over that. And to link this back, Dark Souls will reward your curiosity with good items, with good weapons, with jokes, with descriptions, with enemies. Elden Ring rewards your curiosity, seeing as the critical path of the game is about 10% of the game. You can speedrun Elden Ring in 2 hours, or you can slowly play it in 300 or 400. Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, very similar. It will reward your curiosity to do something. Castlevania started it. Morrowind rewards curiosity with super interesting mechanical breaks, super interesting ideas, different weird stories. Skyrim, I don't feel rewarded curiosity as much. It's a big game, there's lots to do, but you'll always find the critical path relatively quickly in Skyrim. Oblivion was that kind of mix of the critical path is interesting, but your curiosity is just about rewarded. Yeah. That's where I like games going back to, allowing the player to do something silly and recognizing them for it and saying, hey, here's a bit of interesting game for that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well, can I ask you just a broad question in terms of, like, you mentioned Castlevania Symphony tonight, and then that trigger moment of like, wow, there's a whole new thing here. A moment of memory for me, and you'll relate to this, I hope. It was Final Fantasy VII. Like the moment that was one of my first like PS1 games, one of my first proper RPGs. The moment you get onto the world map for me was that mind-blowing moment of, as soon
as you leave Midgar.
Yeah.
And the camera zooms out, and you've got this little city next to you, and you're stood there, and you're like, hang on, that city was huge.
Yes.
I thought that was the game.
I thought it was a game about blowing up reactors.
Yeah, there's 2 more discs. So for me,
yes, what was that?
That moment came in a kind of meta way with Baldur's Gate 1.
Okay.
And my friend had installed Baldur's Gate 1 on a PC. I'd never played it before, and I went round to their house, and I sat and I played it for a bit, and I really enjoyed it. And I tried to travel in Baldur's Gate 1. Have you played Baldur's Gate 1?
No.
So I tried to travel from city to city, and a little note came up saying, please insert disc 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I thought, oh. So I opened the box. Baldur's Gate 1 has 5 discs.
Okay.
And they unfold, right, from one to the other. I've got 2 of the actual Baldur's Gate 1 things up on the wall, and I buy them every time I see them. It's like a little addiction of mine, because it's got such good memories to me. And when I realized that 5 discs, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I mean, even Final Fantasy VII with 3 discs was that moment for me of, oh, this is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is bigger than I ever thought it could be. I mean, even modern day games like stepping out into Limgrave in Elden Ring it almost brought back that moment for me of, this is massive. This is huge. When I first sat down, my granddad bought a PlayStation 1 many years ago. I sat down, I put in a game called Command and Conquer, and I had no idea what it was about. And then I chose the Nod side because they were evil and they looked cool. And then the first Command and Conquer, it's a live cinematic, and a guy sits down going, I'm Seth, just Seth, from God to Cain to Seth. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like a military story. This is super cool. And I've had a lot of these little moments where I realized that video games could be something more than just a silly little fun thing to play. I finished the original Rayman on PlayStation 1, and then I bought the sequel Rayman 2, The Great Escape, on N64. And when it started, and it was in 3D, instead of being a 2D side-scroller, I'm like, oh, they've changed it. They've advanced. I was expecting more of the same, and they've given me something new.
Yes.
But I think the kind of moment that I realized video games were amazing was Legend of Zelda, the Ocarina of Time, when I first ran into Hyrule Field, and I could see Death Mountain in the distance, I could see Lake Hylia, I could see the castle, I could see the Kukri Forest, and I realized I am in for an adventure here. And it's that adventure. There was a phrase that the God of War developers used, the original God of War and God of War 2 on PlayStation 2. They said when they set out to make God of War, they wanted to give you the adventure the back of the box was always promising you.
Yes.
Every time I've read the back of a game, it's always promised me a grand adventure. I've only been on one a few times. But again, God of War 1 and 2 were also a moment for me when I sat back and like, this is incredible.
And again, that's just a certain sadness I think I have nowadays, is that with this digital momentum that we've got in terms of box art and again, just again opening up a manual and seeing all the artwork and all, it's been stripped away almost. And I hate to be that boomer guy, but it feels that way. It's kind of the way it is.
So you're not actually a boomer with that, because this ties in really weirdly to what I studied at university. I studied performing arts at university. I wanted to be an actor my entire life. I was lucky enough to work in London in theatre for a while until COVID shut all the theatres down. But my university kind of specialization, my theory specialization, was in something called phenomenology. And phenomenology to me is fascinating. It is the psychological study of a human experience of an event based on all of the factors and the context around the event, but not the event itself. So, for example, the event is playing a video game. You bought a video game, you bought a PlayStation 1, you bought a PS2, you bought a Game Boy game. Cool, that's the event. And you sit down and you play it. But what about the factors around that? What about the reading the catalog, circling the things you want before you go and get it? What about sitting in the car as someone was driving you home, playing on a Game Boy, and you could only play when the street lights would whoosh past the window and just illuminate the screen enough for you to see what you were doing? And if you were lucky enough, you bought one of those little clip-on lights that could just about angle down, but you had 4 AA batteries in the back of the Game Boy that were running out. What about reading the manual of a video game in the car as you were on your way home? What about turning the PlayStation on and hearing that PlayStation boot up sound? All of these small experiences, all of these moments, they are part of the phenomenology of a game. Baldur's Gate 1 impressed me because it had 5 discs. Now it doesn't. It has a download link on Steam. The game hasn't changed, but my experience of the game has, because I don't have any of the phenomenology around it. So when you say you feel it's changed, it has, absolutely. It's the reason that watching a film at home on a small screen TV in the middle of the day with noise outside is different to going to the cinema with your friends, with some popcorn, with an overpriced Coke, and sat there and watching a big film. Ultimately, the experience, the film, hasn't changed. But the context the experience is had within has massively changed. It's why they re-released the Rocky Horror Picture Show in cinemas. It's why people say, hey, we're going to go and watch Lord of the Rings in the cinema, the extended editions, all 3 of them. It's why people go and watch Star Wars in the cinema still, because the phenomenology of those events makes them. And the best way to explain this to someone is, how weird did COVID feel when everyone was inside doing everything? And suddenly we realized that even if we were doing a Zoom meeting of, hey, we're going to have a Zoom party, a Zoom catch up. We're all going to be on cameras, all watching each other. No, terrible, bad idea. Don't do it. It was awful. We realized that you lose something when you take away the human experience, when you take away all the little bits, all add up together. Every little experience. You mentioned about reading the manual.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who makes manuals for games that don't have them.
Oh,
and
amazing.
They're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. They're amazing. He does Nintendo Wii games. He's done the Switch games, and he just reads through it, and they're beautiful. I had the manuals for all the Legend of Zelda games. Every little experience like that, all the way down to wrapping the wire around a controller and then unwrapping it and having it curl, and that the gray of the PlayStation 1, the slow drift of the analog stick on the N64, the clack of the keyboard when you are playing kind of Theme Hospital, clicking on a balloon and making it pop. All those things are tiny grains of sand which kind of surround your sandcastle. Mm-hmm. If you just give someone a sandcastle without the grains of sand around it, it loses something, and it loses the phenomenology of the experience.
Amazing. Incredible. Love that. I love that. Okay, Josh, I got to ask you. So, how long have you been doing content creation for? Was it a COVID thing? Was it something that was in the pipeline?
So I wanted to be an actor since I was a kid. I had a VHS of GoldenEye, one of the old James Bond films, and I would watch it repeatedly again and again and again. And then we got Tomorrow Never Dies, and one day I turned to my mum and I said, "Mum, that's what I want to do as a job." And she looked at me proudly and said, "You want to be in MI5?" And I said, "No, I want to be Pierce Brosnan." And I then decided to be an actor. And so I started going to acting school. I started acting, but I would come home from acting school and it would be, I was tired. I was learning scripts all day. I was on stage all day. I was performing all day. So I would play video games to relax. One of the video games I played was a game called Neverwinter Online, which is an action Dungeons and Dragons RPG, MMORPG. And I was stuck on a boss. I was stuck on a boss for a bit, and I watched a couple of guides, and I couldn't find a good guide online anywhere. And I thought, I can do this. And at the time, I was dating a girl who was a Twitch streamer. Okay. And I'd never heard of Twitch. So I was saying to her, "Hey, show me what this is." And she said, "Oh, you just play video games." So I sat down, I tried to play CSGO. I was not very good at Counter-Strike. And I said to her, "Can I just change the game to whatever I want to play? I mean, there are 20 or 30 people watching us. Can I just change to Neverwinter?" She went, "Yeah, fine." So I streamed Neverwinter, and some people donated £5 or £6. And I thought, oh, hello, there's a business opportunity here. So I started Twitch streaming Neverwinter. I started making guides for Neverwinter. I started becoming one of the known hunter rangers on the server. I started becoming known on YouTube, and my guides were doing really well. And people kept saying to me, "Hey, I want to play Neverwinter, but I don't know where to start." So I made a beginner's guide to Neverwinter. You'd never played a PC game. Here's how you install Neverwinter and play it. It did very well. But Neverwinter did not. So I started playing Terra. I made a beginner's guide to Terra. The beginner's guides were my things. I was a teacher for a while. I was good at explaining things, and I loved video games. I wanted to share my passion. So I started making more guides. A beginner's guide to Guild Wars 2, a beginner's guide to the Elder Scrolls. And these guides have been watched by people that I was idolizing as content creators.
Right, okay.
I had, there's a fantastic artist called Miracle of Sound, who has made some incredible kind of video game inspired songs, who watched my beginner's guide to the Elder Scrolls Online and messaged me saying, "Hey Josh, I want to say thank you for that. Me and him now chat. He's a really good guy." And then COVID hit, and all of the theaters shut down, all the film and TV shut down, all the teaching jobs shut down, and I was just left Twitch streaming and making YouTube videos. And while I was researching new video games, new MMORPGs to make beginner's guides to, I kept getting banner ads on the side of my monitor. Banner ads for a game called Evany. "Help us, my liege. Help us, my king." There was a scantily clad kind of anime girl, and it was like, "You must come and save the kingdom." And I thought, this looks terrible. I'm intrigued.
Okay, yeah.
How terrible? Because what I came to realize through working in theater, doing film and TV, and teaching was there's only one thing people love more than good stuff. And that's bad stuff.
It's true.
The old saying is, people go to the theater because tonight might be the night the wire breaks. People kind of want something bad to happen. There's that morbid curiosity of the terribleness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I downloaded a game called League of Angels, and I reviewed it. And I thought this has got to be the worst MMO ever. So I made a video called Worst MMO Ever, League of Angels. And it wasn't meant to be a series. It was just, I thought this was terrible. So I played it, and that video did really well. And then League of Angels brought out a sequel. League of Angels, I played League of Angels 3, and then they brought out League of Angels Heaven's Fury. So I made worst MMO ever 2, League of Angels Heaven's Fury. And after I made that video, I kind of sat there looking at it going, that's a series. There is a series idea right there. I've played 2 MMOs. There's got to be more. So I researched and I found as many as I could, and I started making a series called Worst MMO Ever. We are currently up to episode, I want to say 89. Wow. I have played 89 MMORPGs, from good ones to bad ones. Some of them I have never heard of, I'd never played. I'd never played Guild Wars 1. I downloaded it, I played it, I added it to the Worst MMO Ever series. You know what? It's brilliant. It's one of the best RPGs I've ever played, because the series is about finding the worst MMO ever. That became its kind of goal and its focus. And while I was making the Worst MMO Ever series, I realized that YouTube and Twitch was starting to generate a decent amount of income. The advertising revenue, people were supporting me on Patreon, and eventually I was making minimum wage by just making videos. And that was great, because I was making minimum wage at the time. So I thought, all right, I'm going to take a risk. And I quit my actual job, and I just focused on making videos full time. And the danger when you do that is you want to pump out more content, more content, more content. But you do that at the expense of quality. You focus on quantity, you forget about the quality. And it was very scary to not put out a video for 2 or 3 weeks, hoping that when I did put out a video, it would make 2 or 3 weeks worth of revenue. Yeah. And thankfully, it did. And I've now been able to take even bigger risks, where I'm reviewing, bigger games and longer old RPGs. And then I realized, hey, I could review old RPGs in the same way that I'm reviewing MMORPGs. Yeah. But no one's reviewing old RPGs because they take hundreds of hours to finish. There is a reason that not many people have finished a game that takes 300 or 400 hours. It's because not many people have got that time. Mm-hmm. Very few game reviewers have got that time. But I took a risk, and it turned out that the audience want that. It helps that I'm very middle class and very British, because the Americans love the accent.
They certainly do, yeah.
That's been a real big thing. It's been a great boon. It's been a great string to the bow. And now I'm able to review MMORPGs with a good amount of Patreon support, review RPGs, and I've been able to turn down a hell of a lot of sponsorships, because it's about making the best quality content I can over a long time. And I've been very lucky to do that as a career.
Yeah, incredible. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And I love that. I love that. And I have to ask, so do you prefer the video editing over like the Twitch side of stuff? What do you have a preference towards? Is it the video?
So if I had to choose something to do for the rest of my life, it would probably be theatre. I love the audience reaction. I love that energy. I love that vibe. And from a purely almost selfish point of view, I love being tested as an actor. I love walking out on stage and knowing it's me, it's my skills, it's the trust in my fellow actors, it's the trust in the team, the ability. That challenge sustains me. I mean, I remember specifically walking out one day, I was in a performance of Grease. I still maintain this is my best improv ever. I was playing Kaneki. I ran out. I was meant to be a big fight scene. I forgot the baseball bat prop that I was meant to have. So I ran out and went, sorry, I'm late, guys. I forgot my fist. Which I thought was brilliant. It was very funny. The audience laughed. And the reason I bring this up is Twitch is theatre.
Yes.
But with a camera. It's live theatre. It tests me. When I am playing the choose your own adventure games on Twitch, I am entertaining a live audience. I've got the audience counter in the side. That goes up, I'm doing a good job. That goes down, people probably don't want to stick around for a 5-hour book. That's totally understandable. But that to me is live theatre. And I love that. Problem is, Twitch only makes money when you're there. Yeah. Just like live theatre, you have to turn up and do the show every single time. YouTube, however, is film. YouTube is you create something, you edit it, you make it good, you put it out on YouTube, it'll make you a small amount of money forever. It drip feeds that. From a financial point of view, YouTube is far more lucrative. But from an artistic, fulfilling, sustaining point of view, Twitch challenges me and keeps me sharp with the skills that I want to have to succeed. I mean, to be fair, from a purely financial point of view, if I wanted to just make 10 times more than I'm making now, I'd just become a reactor. I would just wait for somebody else to make a video, sit down, react to it, release it. I could put out an hour's video a day. That'd be great because I'm not doing any work in that way. YouTube pays the bills. The MMORPG series, the worst MMO, that is successful. It's financially successful, and I love it. From an artistic point of view, I like playing the MMO games. The RPG kind of series on the Josh Strife Plays channel, that's great. It's a huge time investment, but it pays the bills. It allows me to treat my dogs to some good food. Twitch allows me to hone my skills as a live entertainer. It allows me to stay sharp and to constantly think of references for things. It also prevents me getting incredibly bored sat in a room by myself, because someone says to me, oh, it must be great playing video games all day. I'm like, it is for the first 2 or 3 hours. Then it's kind of boring because, I played, one of the videos I'm working on right now is called 100 Hours in Runescape. And I've played RuneScape 5 hours a day for the last 20 days, which is quite intense because when I'm sat there thinking, I would like to go and do something else now. Yeah. But a part of me is like, no, chop trees, do it.
Yes.
I made a video called 100 Hours in EverQuest, and then that did remarkably well. I want to carry on and try and capitalize on that with 100 Hours in RuneScape, and then expand that to 100 Hours in Final Fantasy XIV, Elder Scrolls Online, World of Warcraft, because very few people are making these kind of time-intensive videos. So to me, Twitch keeps me sated with that live, no improv, no retakes. You've just got to go for it. And YouTube kind of pays the bills.
Yeah. I love that. I love that because, again, it answers the question perfectly in terms of, like, it's almost like a yin and yang, almost, isn't it, when you put it that way?
Absolutely. So, it's, if I focused entirely on one, I would lose the benefit of the other. Yeah. I don't want to just do YouTube because even though that would be a financially smart decision, I would lose the connection to live entertainment. And to me, when I Twitch stream and people join my Twitch stream and we get to talk and chat, I genuinely love video games. And normally the people that join me genuinely love video games. And there is that moment where it's just parasocial enough that we still all understand that there's a level of respect here. But it's that connection globally that we're here because we want to have fun, have a good time, and experience something enjoyable together. It's that level of togetherness that keeps me doing Twitch.
Thank you for answering. I love that. So I've only got a couple more questions, if I may. So first question is, if you were stuck on a remote island, this will be interesting, I think, for yourself, Josh. So stuck on a remote island, you can only have 3 games with you for the rest of your time on that island. You can play online, you can do mods, all that stuff, but you can only bring 3 games with you onto the island for the rest of your life. What would they be? And why? So
if I can play online, even if it doesn't work, I would want to play Time Splitters 2, because I absolutely adore the first-person shooter Time Splitters 2. I would definitely take RuneScape, without a doubt. I would finally be able to get to actually finish RuneScape. That would be brilliant. Now, to me, the playing online is a big part of that, because I get to interact with other people, I get to chat. Time Splitters 2 would, I know it's a PlayStation 2 GameCube game. I know there was an online kind of thing with it for a while. I'm not sure if it was a big thing, but let's say that we can play that online. I love that first-person shooter, made by the same guys that made GoldenEye on the N64. It is just so much fun. There's so much variety, so much enjoyableness to that. RuneScape, because it's an endless RPG, I get to keep playing it. As far as the third game goes, now, I've never played Minecraft because I'm scared of how long I would play it for. It's a really good... If it's about me connecting to other people and just enjoying a game with them. So my agent, a friend of mine called Greg, even though Mr. Greggles, but he and I work together very, very closely. Whenever, Mr. Greggles, Mr. Greggles, he's great. Yeah. Whenever Mr. Greggles and I have had a bad day, whenever we've had a busy day, we jump on Age of Empires against each other. We jump on Command and Conquer. We'd have a real-time strategy game, Age of Empires 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever we're feeling. So I would probably say Age of Empires 2 is my most favorite of all of the Age of Empires. It would need to be some kind of real-time strategy game. If I'm stuck on a desert island and have forever, I could probably work out how Supreme Commander works, because that is such an in-depth game. But yeah, we'd go with Age of Empires 2 for tactical RPG strategy. We'd go with RuneScape for online RPG, and I'd go with Time Splitters 2 for a bit of fast-paced first-person shooting action.
Brilliant. Amazing. And then my final question then is, again, George, thank you. Just firstly, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And this has been, I'm absorbing. I feel like I'm doing probably the least amount of chatting I've done in my podcast ever, because I'm just absorbing your knowledge and your wisdom. Thank you. But final question is, what advice would you give to anyone thinking of going into the content creation sphere? You know, whether it be streaming, whether it be YouTube, what would you say?
Do it because you love it. So Michael Caine, famous actor, once said, "Don't be an actor because you can. Be an actor because you can't be anything else." When I finished acting for the day, I would come home and I would play video games, because a video game player is who I am. I love Dungeons and Dragons. I don't fake that. I love Warhammer. I love Magic the Gathering. I love Sonic. I've got a Baldur's Gate 3 statue next to me. I love all of this. Everything behind me sparks joy on a deep personal level. And if I wasn't doing any of this, I would still be doing this. Like, if I wasn't making content on MMO games, I would still be playing MMORPG games. So, and the advice is going to switch quite heavily in a second. Do it because you love it. Do it because it is who you are, because the audience can tell. The audience can tell if you're faking. Yeah. They can tell if you are dead behind the eyes. They can tell if you think you're doing this for the money, which is a foolish thing to do, because very, very, very few people ever actually succeed at it. Do it because you can't not do it. People have said to me before, "Oh, I've put out one video, it got no views, I quit." I'm like, okay, cool. That's probably best. If you're going to quit after one failure, you were not going to carry on anyway. You need a very thick skin to work in the entertainment industry. People have said to me, "Oh, if I don't find success in the first 6 months, I'm going to quit." I'm like, in that case, you're not doing it because you love the process. You're doing it because you are coveting the reward of the process. And the only way to get to that reward is to forget about it and make the process as good as it can possibly be. But you're doing it as a job. So there is a Reddit thread on, in fact, Reddit's subreddit called NewTubers. NewTubers is all about new YouTubers, and I have one of the top-rated posts of all time on the NewTubers subreddit, and it's called, "If you want to make money on YouTube, read this thread." And I basically break it down saying, look, you need to love it, you need to be passionate about it, but you are running a business. You are now your own boss. You have business decisions to make. You need to niche down and become good at something. You need to find one genre of game, one idea, one gimmick, and do that. People have said to me, "Oh, but I just want to play whatever I want. I just want to play random games. I play different games." Okay, cool. That's fine. You find it very difficult to find an audience. You will find it very, very hard to find any kind of repeat customers. If someone finds you and likes what you're doing and comes back next week and you're doing something different, they'll be like, "This is not for me. I'm going to go." You have to treat it like a job. Love it, yes, but treat it like a job. If I'm sat there playing Runescape for 5 or 6 hours and I think, right, I want to go and do something else, no, this is my job now. You are doing this. People go to work at fast food restaurants. They go to work at warehouses. They go to work as teachers. They go to work as manual laborers, as bricklayers, or whatever you want to do. They don't get to halfway through say, "You know what, I'm not enjoying building a house anymore. I'm going to go and build a small garage. I'm not enjoying flipping this burger anymore. I'm just going to go outside and build a house of cards." I'm like, okay, you don't get to do that. Your job is to do this as well as you can. And when you start making content, your job is to find the content the audience want and make it as well as you can. The trick is to find that content and the content you like are the same thing.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I love that. I relate to that a lot in my own way, obviously. Again, just doing this podcast for starters. So, that's brilliant advice.
And that's why I want to do the podcast, because you've made so many episodes of this. It's not a case of, hey, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to do it for 1 or 2. You know what? I'm not getting 1 billion views or 1 billion listens every podcast. I'm going to scrap and go to something else. The amount of people that jump around from project to project is extensive. The amount of people that I see, people come up to me all the time in the entertainment industry, YouTube, Twitch, and they say, "Oh, I started doing this thing and it didn't succeed in 3 or 4 weeks and I stopped. What do you think?" I said, "I think you've not got the attention span to keep doing this. You very much need to choose something and stick with it and love the process."
Yeah.
You love the process. And that is the attitude that will get you to the reward.
Thank you. Thanks, Josh. Wow. Appreciate that.
No worries, man. It's true.
Wow, what an ending! That yeah. Thank you. I really, really appreciate your time, mate. And yeah, that was incredible. And I think I can't think of any better way to end the season on that. To be honest with you, I kind of want to end it there, but I got to say goodbye to people. So again, everyone, please check out Josh Strife Hayes if you have not already. I know a lot of you already have, but please check him out. Absolutely brilliant content creator and a wonderful person. Again, I can't wait to see you again in a few days, mate. I can't wait.
We're going to hang out tomorrow at the Liverpool. It's going to be a good time, and hopefully we're going to be able to find time for lots of events in the future. Both of us, I see having long, successful, happy careers, and I hope that we get to meet as many people who want to do this job that we do, and we get to talk to them and explain to them that, look, you can do it. It's work, it's effort, it's not easy, but it's very rewarding from a spiritual point of view, it's very rewarding from an artistic point of view, and ultimately, on some level, yeah, playing video games as a job. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. It certainly is. Yes. Hell yeah. Everyone, thanks for watching, listening. Follow Josh. Catch you soon for the next one. Bye, everyone. Bye.